We're about to do a show.
I did a great beard trim yesterday morning, so I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of looking at it in
Looking
the
good.
camera right now.
It's looking
It was
sharp.
pretty good. I looked very, very, very scraggly at home with pre-shave or pre-trim. So it is. I was pretty proud of it.
Both
Man,
Luke and I,
a little.
both Luke and I's facial hair is looking real good today. So if you're listening to the
Hmm.
audio only version of the podcast, go check us
Yeah,
out on YouTube.
yeah.
Because we
Please do.
we're feeling ourselves. We think we look pretty good.
I like the rant. Ranting is fun. It also makes it cleanses the soul. Uh,
Detroit is to be one of the best sports cities in the country, if not the best.
Surely Javi can't be as bad this year as he was last year. Surely that can't be the case.
One of the worst offenses, if not the worst offense, like in the modern era of baseball. Just absolutely atrocious. He is a piece to the puzzle. He is not the entire puzzle.
Right.
He is a puzzle piece, but he is not the entire puzzle.
This is the Michigan and Trumbull podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Giaconis. Hello and welcome to the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. I'm Alex Freeman, joined as always by the beautiful Luke Giaconis. Luke, how you doing?
Good. Good. Pretty good. Pretty good day. Pretty good time to be a Tiger fan right now. I'm sure we're going to get
Yeah.
into that in just a moment. But overall, in personal life, life is good. Work is good. I'd say the weather's changing, but I live in Florida, so literally year round we have nice weather. So to my friends up north in the Midwest, Alex, you guys in New York, I'm sure that weather's really starting to get that pristine summertime condition, and I'm happy for you. And I can't wait to experience it myself this time next week.
It's
Well, I
it's
guess this episode will drop on Monday. We're recording on a Saturday. A week from today, while we're recording, I will be in the Big Apple for the first time ever with you
Yeah, it's
and other
getting
people.
there. The weather is getting there. We have had some 80-degree days, but
Yeah.
this weekend, this week have been a little bit chillier, maybe low 60s. Looking ahead to the weekend when you're here, Luke, we're looking at like 70s in
Okay.
there. And my warning to you, New York 70 is a little chilly because you end up
Okay.
outside a
All
lot of
right.
the time because you're walking to places or you're
Mm-hmm.
waiting to get into a place because places don't have big lobbies, so
Okay.
you end up waiting outside. So just be prepared for that.
All right.
I've got sweatshirts if you need to borrow them
Oh,
as you
good.
come here.
I think I will. Yes, I think I'll bring. I already. You know what? Forget talking about the Tigers. Let's just talk about what I'm going to pack. For starters, jeans, khakis, shorts, a nice button up, if you will. Going to the theater a couple nights. Got to look snazzy. Yeah, great.
This is a late breaking news. Just got a text from my wife who said 70 in New York is chilly for Luke because he's a weak Floridian.
Okay, you know what? For someone who has been clamoring for years to come visit her in a city I've never been, that's not the exact red carpet service you would want to give to a guest who is finally coming to
No, no,
visit your
that feels
state.
like a New York welcome. Uh,
Yeah, and I only can expect that your wife, the lovely Holland, will make fun of me for being a thin-blooded Floridian and then mug me, give me the real New York welcome. So I'm excited.
um, yeah, it'll be great. It will be great.
Wonderful.
I just got distracted by a different text from
No,
her.
that's okay. Are
So
you guys
my
both planning on mugging me?
my
Is this
place.
the group? You guys gonna beat the crap out of me and steal my wallet?
This is awkward that this is how you're finding out, Luke. No, but I am excited because you're gonna experience Yankee Stadium for the first time. So we will
Yes.
have a stadium
Hmm.
review in a future episode. It'll be a great time for us to dive into that. But yeah, let's timestamp the show here. So it is Saturday
Hmm.
morning as we're recording. The Tigers won last night, which puts them two games below 500,
Uh,
2022.
two, yeah, two games below. They're 20 and 22 and 2.5 out of first place. Twins, Cleveland, and Kansas City lost last night. Only the Tigers and the White Sox won in the AL Central. So, it, I mean,
It's a nice spot to
yeah,
be in.
let's not bury the lead here. And I know I tweeted it out a couple days ago, but now is the time. Now is the
Mhm.
time. And we talked about this on the last episode we did. I'm sure we'll recap what's gone on since our last episode, but now is the time. If If the Tigers want to even keep some level of interest for this fan base going into the summer months, now is the time. Now are the games that you must win. It's not a thing of like, well, if we can hopefully take two or three from Washington, or maybe split a series with the White Sox at the end of the month. No, no, no. You need to be winning these series.
Yeah.
The Nationals suck. The Royals suck. The White Sox suck. You have a better record than all three of those teams, and I truly believe that on paper, maybe minus the White Sox a little bit, although they're pretty just banged up and abysmal this season, that the Tigers, at least on paper, are for sure better than the Nationals, for sure better than the Royals. And I would even say right now, given where we're at this point in the season, 7 to 8 weeks in, they're better than the White Sox. So you got to
Mhm.
win these games. You have to win these games. You had a really tough month of April. On paper, you had a tough month of May, but they've really answered and responded to those matchups quite well. Now reward yourself by playing some teams that are essentially less than you and that are worse than you. And you could really put yourself in a nice little position heading into June. 'Cause I'm looking at the schedule now, just for what it's worth. They will finish the month off against the Rangers, and they're pretty solid. Then they're on the road against the White Sox in June, on the road against the Phillies in June. Phillies went to the World Series last year. I know they're hit a little hot and cold, hit and miss, but they're still the Phillies. But then June again, tough schedule picks up. You get Arizona, Atlanta, Minnesota, Royals, they suck. Minnesota, Texas, and then goes out one game in Colorado. So June is a considerably tougher month of competition than their May schedule that they're getting these next few weeks. So you got to strike while the iron's hot, get it done.
Yeah, and for what it's worth at the moment, in kind of that upcoming slate of teams that they're facing, the Rangers have a winning record. The Phillies do not currently. They're currently 4 games below 500. Not that I think that they're better than their record. The Diamondbacks
Mhm.
have a winning record, and then obviously
Mhm.
the Twins and the Braves there as well. But important to note that, like, if you can, there is a scenario where we go into that series with the Twins, the first time we face the Twins this season,
Mhm.
that we're that's truly a 4 game battle for first place.
Yeah.
That and I if you had said that that was even remotely a possibility to me in April, I would have said you're literally insane.
Yeah.
That's not
You're losing
going
on
to
it.
happen.
You're losing it.
Uh, Even
Um,
as optimistic as we can get at times, and if you listen to the season prediction episode, even as optimistic as I was in that
mhm.
episode, winning the Central was not a thing that I thought we would even be in conversation about right now.
Well, thus far, my preseason game plan of going in with such low expectations, I can only help but be pleasantly surprised that's the only option, has worked out for me. So good job. I finally, after 28 years of being a baseball fan and a Tigers fan, finally figured out the key to success, so you don't have every season in heartbreak. The one thing I will say this about the Tigers, I agree with you. I get what you're saying with like we could be. I definitely think you're going to be battling for first place if they keep playing like this June with the Twins. The Tigers, though, I don't think at any point this season, unless things go a complete opposite direction, are ever going to be a runaway team. I just don't think the AL Central is right now. I mean, if you get really, really, really hot, you can be a runaway team. I just don't see any of the players in the AL Central being that type of. We don't have a Tampa Bay Rays or
Right.
a LA Dodgers or an Atlanta Braves kind of juggernaut of a team. Everyone is just very, very, very mediocre to bad.
Yeah.
And the Twins, I know the Twins right now, that this is typical Minnesota Twins baseball. I know they're in first place, and I think their record is 24 and 21. So they're gonna hover around 500 for most of the season. Then they'll get a little bit hot, at some point, and instead of maybe being 2 or 3 over, they'll push that to 8, 9, 10 games over. And even if they do end up winning the AL Central, we all know they're going to get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. So it doesn't even really matter. That's why it's just nice to see the Tigers in the conversation, because this
Yeah.
time last year we were like, "Are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me?" And then, to be fair, and I'm giving credit to AJ, and I know I've been kind of critical of him lately and just his teams overall since he's come to Detroit. It wasn't until about this time in 2021 where they kind of started turning that switch on, because you got to remember those first 2 months they got off to those abysmal starts for the respective seasons of 21 and 22. And it was after the Turnbull no hitter in 21 where the team kind of finally started to come alive. I believe they swept Seattle when they're out on the West Coast, and then from there they got their momentum. We're about at that same time last year. I think I just saw memory. The Turnbull no hitter was about 2 years ago, and we're already at a competitive spot, not having to play catch up, so to speak. So that's a big improvement. That's a big improvement from 21. The team is enormously improved, I would say, in certain aspects from 2022, especially offensively. So it definitely encouraging things happening. I still don't think this is a runaway team. I think they're going to struggle from time to time. I think even in the win to the Nationals that they had last night, you saw where this team struggles. They have some middle relief issues. They still don't have some of those lights out middle relievers I would like them to have. I think Chase and Shreve definitely has been a pleasant surprise. And let's just talk about the back end of the bullpen while we're here for a moment. What Jason Foley, and in particular Alex Lang, are doing are absolutely incredible. Alex Lang, I think you can make an argument, and I'm not just saying this from a biased standpoint, the numbers back it up. You can make an argument, I think, is a top three, if not the best closer in baseball right now. Right now, I know, that could always change, but the way he's pitching right now, with that combination of that curveball, fastball, the 1-2 punch. I mean, it's just I feel very, very, very confident if you give a lead to Foley and Lang in the 8th and the 9th, good things are going to happen.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, Luke, I'm going to ask you this before we kind of continue into this conversation. Was that your rant, or do you have a rant we will get to?
It's a rant. It's a rant. And again, catching me at a time where the Tigers are playing pretty good baseball. So I'm not too, I will say this, that last game of the Pirates series, what the hell happened? If we would have recorded on a Wednesday, I think I would have thrown my laptop out a window. I don't know what happened there. I do have a bit of a rant though, and think a PSA I would like to say. It's not even have to do with the Tigers. It's actually got to do with a team I'm going to watch very soon. I'd love to get your thoughts on them.
Music? You want your intro music?
Feed me the music. Feed me the music. Come on, let's go. My ears. Ooh, I could have some good graphics and that. Otherwise, I'll just keep air punching my laptop.
That's next season.
Alex, actually, I have to ask. I feel like you have maybe some explaining to do a little bit, because you have gone on record saying they are your local team. Your local team's a bunch of cheaters. So how are you going to respond to that? They cheat. Substance, foreign substances on the hands. You got Aaron Judge playing the looky-loo in Toronto. I think it was Toronto or Seattle, wherever it was. You got the guy the other night getting tossed out. They had just the guy last night in the Yankee game that had to go wash his hands because something was dripping off his glove. It's like 3 or 4 cheating controversies in the last week for the New York Yankees. And what's going on?
If you're not cheating, you're not trying to win, right?
Right.
No, I mean, I don't really have a defense. I think that baseball is one of those weird sports where there is a certain level of cheating that everyone is doing. Some teams then push it a little bit too far, a la the Houston Astros, the Boston Red Sox, the New York baseball Yankees. And then it comes to bite you. And I think that, yeah, it sort of outlines exactly who the Yankees are as an organization, right? If we can't just outright buy it, we'll go steal it. Mm-hmm. And so far under Aaron Boone, they have not been able to buy one. And so now maybe we got to go try and do some of these other things.
Well, it's just so fascinating because literally, I get it. These things happen kind of periodically throughout the season when there's a little controversy, someone gets tossed, blah, blah, blah. The Max Scherzer thing a couple weeks ago. But the Yankees have had 3 question marks in the last 4 games. They had the Aaron Judge kind of doing the wandering eyes in Toronto, and then Domingo Germán gets thrown out for having the substance edges. He got the 10-game suspension. He will not appeal. And then last night against the Reds, the guy didn't get tossed. The Reds manager ended up getting tossed, I think David Bell. And he had, I guess something was dripping from his glove, they were saying. They made him go wash his hands mid-game. it's not a good, like from a PR standpoint, it's not a good look
Yeah.
when with 3 times within like 72 hours or however many, 4 days, however many it's been, that there's been some eyes looking at you. As if there's not enough pressure already being the Yankees, you're not giving yourself a lot of good press, so to speak.
And I think the Judge thing is overblown.
I do
Like
agree with that. Yeah.
Aaron Judge is a fantastic hitter
Mm-hmm.
and will mash a ball regardless of if he actually knows
Mm-hmm.
what pitch is coming. Um, and that like I don't know that we've seen it in any other situation yet from Judge. Like I'm sure people have been poring over the tapes to see if they can find Judge doing that same thing again. Weird that it happened twice in that game.
Mm-hmm.
But I, you know,
The
probably a
Yankees
little
too
overblown.
have never. You kind of said, sometimes they can't buy it; they'll steal it. They've been blatant in the past. The first one that comes to mind, this was when he was like a rookie and he was a former Tiger last year. Michael Pineda. He had the infamous on his neck. I want to say maybe they were in Boston, and he had. I think it was like the start before. Um, he had they had like seen something on his hand or something along those lines in his prior start, and he got away with it. And then he was dumb enough to try it again in his next start, I believe. And it was on his neck, I remember, and they tossed him. And it was like so blatant. So it's almost like it it's almost like when you're the rich guy, the rich kid in school, and your parents will just buy everything. That's what the Yankees remind me
Yeah.
of. And it's like, well, even if I get caught, like I'm gonna like, my parents aren't gonna care.
What am I?
I'm
What am
still
I
gonna
going to
get
do?
to go like,
Pay a fine? It's fine.
yeah, they'll pay a fine. We don't care. We don't
Yeah.
care. Whereas if that happened to the Oakland A's, they'd probably have to, sell half of their stadium.
Yeah. They which I mean they could, and no one's using it. So
One cheating fine for the A's, and they go bankrupt. That's
it's
it.
over. Shut it
It's
down.
over. They turn that thing into a spirit Halloween. That's actually my go-to karaoke song. I don't know if I've ever told you that.
Oh, I knew it.
Get on the mic and I
I
go.
knew it sounded familiar.
Yep.
That sounded very, very familiar. Yeah, let's talk.
Mhm.
So let's talk about this Detroit Tigers team a little bit.
Yeah,
Things
let's do it.
things are good. Except for that, obviously that weird where no one could figure out how to hit Hill,
Yeah.
who throws
guy who's
12,
been around
12
the
miles
league.
an hour.
Yeah, Rich Hill, the guy who actually was around when the major leagues were founded. Actually, it's surprising they couldn't hit him. Yeah, look, let's kind of go back. So I think the last time we did a show, you were going to St. Louis. So we're going back a little bit, to be fair, but to just kind of recapping real quick where this team has been. So they took 2 of 3 from St. Louis, coming off that Mets sweep, and they took 2 of 3 from Cleveland. They lost 2 of 3 at home to Seattle. They split the quick 2-game series against Pittsburgh, and now they begin kind of this easier stretch of games. Um, Last night in particular, and I guess overall, what I have been impressed with the Tigers, through these last 9 to 10 games, whatever it's been, they are hitting the ball better. They really are starting to come alive as an offense. And what I'm appreciating about their offense as of late is that it does feel like a team effort. And this, honestly, in order for this team to be successful, it has to be a team effort because you can't just bank on Riley Green or Javi Baez or Zach McKinstry or Akil Badu. You have to kind of come together as that puzzle, like I always say. Otherwise, it's not going to work. But let's talk about Riley Green for a second. He looks phenomenal.
Yep.
It is so encouraging to see him finally coming into his own. He just looks locked in right now. Let me read his numbers here real quick. I just want to see here just a moment. He has, I know, an OPS right now floating around 800. He's hitting 296. And there's one thing in particular I wanted to see just a moment here. Yeah. OPS of 781, hit 296, 4 home runs, 16 RBIs, 5 stolen bases. And I think he's just getting started. Is
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to get at. Because he had a very kind of mundane start to the season, not god awful, not great, just kind of right in the middle, like a lot of these guys were that those first few weeks of the season. But Riley Green is really starting to come into his own, which is exciting to see. Not only that, he plays such a good center field. I am going to call out AJ Hinch, kind of going to that second game of the Pittsburgh, that quick Pittsburgh series. I understand the matchups and the analytics, and Riley's a lefty and Rich Hill's a lefty. Riley Green is your hottest hitter on the team right now. He had a day off on Monday, played one game Tuesday, then you gave him a day off on Wednesday when he was going to have a day off on Thursday. That was a stupid move, AJ. You play your best. You play your best players as much as you can. I get the analytics, I get the matchups, but sometimes you got to say the hell with it and go the old way.
I don't have him in front of me, but Riley's splits aren't that bad. Like it's not like he's hitting 400 on righties and like 110 against lefties.
Yeah, and even if he was hitting 110 against lefties, he's the hottest hitter on the team right now. Alex, you're a gambler. When you're hot, you keep playing, right? Or do you walk away? I don't know. Maybe I'm not a gambler. Maybe that was a bad call out.
You play the hot hand. You play the hot hand.
You play that hot hand, absolutely. So that was a little bit frustrating. And then obviously the Vierling kind of drop ball in center field. That game didn't matter because they ended up getting blown out by the Pirates, which was embarrassing. But anyways, Riley Green looks so good. Let's keep it positive here. Looks so good. Had another home run last night. A nice catch to start off the game in center field. Riley Green looks really good. Javier Baez continues to impress. I'm telling you, ever since that benching, he's looked pretty solid. He's looked pretty solid. I think I saw something like this is his lowest chase rate.
Yeah, his offense has like greatly come along, and he's starting to look like the Javi Baez that we thought we were getting when we signed him. And there was just a very funny moment. I think it was the final out last night where Javi threw it way wide, and Torque, what a stretch to catch that ball. And I was like, yes, Javier Baez. And
what's even worse,
at least now, those are rare occasions in the middle of good games,
right?
As opposed to last season, where he was committing a fielding error and then sailing it way wide of first base on top of it, or putting it in the dirt 8 feet in front of first base and said, making me go, can you not throw it across the infield? I can throw it across the infield.
Yeah, Spencer Torkelson has definitely made his money's worth at first base, having to scoop out a lot of Javi's sometimes disgusting throws. But yeah, what was interesting about that one last night was he was fielded more over on the second base side. So it was even shorter of a distance to throw, and yet he almost threw it away. And I was like, Javi, put him in the chest. Like, I don't know. But yeah, also, that was
those seem like
frustrating.
The little things that are different from this team than last year, right? Like Javi is probably still making that throw, but Torque is not yet at a point last year where he can make that play at first base.
No, because I remember last year a lot of times being like, God, Spencer Torkelson has been putrid on offense, but his defense, we were like, he's been pretty solid. Now, what's weird about Spencer Torkelson, I don't feel like he gets a lot of buzz about him. I'd have to look at the rankings, like where he ranks, like compared to like metrics wise to other first basemen defensively. But I feel like there's just not a lot of buzz about Torkelson because everyone thinks he's going to be this next big power hitter, which we hope he will be. But he's been a really solid first baseman. Like he is a solid pair of hands to have over at first, especially when you've got a guy who's slinging it like Javi Baez, where you never know where it's going to end up sometimes. So we've got that going for us in that capacity, which is great. One person I want to talk about, I guess more positive things before we kind of get to a negative thing that I want to discuss. Akil Baddoo had a great game last night. It was so nice to see Baddoo really kind of come on. I don't think he had hit a home run in with over 200 and some plate appearances. Like he was just really, really kind of just floating by, wasn't doing anything great, wasn't doing anything terrible, just kind of very meh. So it was really nice to see him have a big game last night. He had the 3-run homer, had a 2-out single that gave the Tigers an early 3-0 lead. So that was good to see. Starting pitching is what I want to talk about a little bit for the Tigers. If I can kind of switch it here for a second. interesting rotation right now. This rotation is very interesting because you have Eduardo Rodriguez, who is pitching really well. I know he had the weird start against the Pirates on Wednesday, so we'll kind of let that
Leading
one
Cy
slide.
Young candidate, Eduardo
Yeah,
Rodriguez.
he's definitely having a great season. I think he would. I don't think he would win, but I think his name should at least be in the conversation. There's a lot of guys who are better than him right now, but you got Erod, who's been pretty solid, minus like one or two starts. Michael Lorenzen, who first of all didn't even start the season with the team. He started the season on the IL. Then he had a couple of rough goes, and like his last 3 or 4 starts, he's looked really, really good. Then you got Matt Boyd, who's kind of Matt Boyd, and like last night he had a no hitter through 5, and then he starts getting roughed up, and he kind of was the spark plug a little bit to kind of lead to the game being a little bit closer than it should have been, although the Tigers ultimately won. And then you've got the two young guys who are just like still trying to find their own, like Joey Wentz and Alex Faedo. So
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting rotation right now with like different levels of talent and different levels of kind of seasoned veteran stats. You got Boyd, you got Lorenzen, you got Erod, who've kind of been around a little more. Then you got Wentz and Faedo, who are trying to find their own. They probably weren't even going to be in the starting rotation. Maybe coming out of camp had, especially in the case of Joey Wentz, had Lorenzen not gotten injured. Spencer Turnbull, we didn't talk about because it was prior to our last episode, gets designated down for assignment. Now he's on the aisle with some neck issues. Positively speaking, though, it sounds like Eric Skubal has been throwing like 7 bullpen sessions, something like that, or he's about to throw his 7th, and maybe returning to game action, like in some rehabs coming up, or live batting practice, who knows, kind of thing. So you got that, Matt Manning. So I don't know how I really can describe how I feel about this rotation right now, other than just kind of like how I summarized it. Just like it feels okay, but then at times I watch it and I go, Jesus, we need a lot of help. We need a ton of help still.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating considering this whole rebuild nonsense was built around starting pitching. So I feel like if anything, we should be like, all right, at least we got some decent starters. Let's focus more on the offense or the bullpen or whatever. And that's not the case right now. I feel like it's the starting pitching I'm kind of the most frustrated about, or I guess concerned about. But then there's days, like I said, I feel okay. I feel like at any point in time when it's a guy like Matt Boyd, you can like watch him throw a no hitter through 5 innings, or he's going to give up 8 runs going into the 4th, and you're going to be like, okay, this is frustrating. So I don't know. I guess what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, just on the Matt Boyd, I had dinner plans. I think during his previous start, not I guess yesterday was.
I think it was against Seattle, I want to say.
Yeah, and right before leaving for dinner, like had the game on, and it was just a classic ugly Matt Boyd first inning, where I went, oh, it's going to be one of these starts. Glad I'm going to dinner. And I sort of have that same vibe, not like fully with every starter, but like I'm not comfortable until we've gotten through the order one time. And I'm like, okay, good. He like seems to have his stuff today. And then we're okay. 1 or 2 runs I'm not usually too worried about, but like ugly base traffic and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a tough one. We're definitely not winning games with starting pitching right now.
Yeah, minus Erod. And I have to give credit to Lorenzen, because Lorenzen looked god awful his first couple of starts. I was like, and here we go. Add him to the list of one and done year Tigers pitchers: Jose Urena, Tyson Ross, Matt Moore, Michael Pineda, Ivan Nova. Michael Lorenzen, they'll have a cold beer waiting for you at the end of the season. So I guess
the question I have for you then, Luke, like obviously we're in a much different conversation situation than I think we thought we might be in at this point in the year. And looking to the way too early trade deadline conversation. In a world where the Tigers do get through this very tough month of June. They play the Twins so many times. 7 times in June against the Twins. They've got the Rangers between the end of this month and the end of June, another 7 times. In a world where we arrive at the All-Star break in this same kind of position, hovering around 500, potentially in first place by a game or 2, or out of the race, or out of first place by like 3-ish games, still within reach, fully. What then do the Tigers need to do at the break? Like, is it a last year Orioles situation where it's kind of like, this is fun, but like we're not gonna win a World Series with this roster? Like, what can we do to kind of leverage some of these guys to put us into that position in the future, as opposed and probably miss the playoffs this year? Versus, are there a few spots where they could add a guy or two and potentially compete?
Yeah, that's a very intricate and has multiple different answers question. So if, let's just say in this hypothetical, let's just assume 2 months from now or whatever, the Tigers are in the exact same position that they're in today. They're like that hovering 500 team, like you said. I don't know what Scott Harris will want to do. I could see him trying to trade Erod. I could see him holding on to him. For myself personally, and this might be the wrong answer, and I'm sure people on Twitter would disagree. Hell, you may even disagree with me. There has been so much heartbreak and pain with this team for so many years that if you're sniffing 500 and a chance at a playoff spot and winning the AL Central, I think you got to go for it. Maybe you get into the playoffs and you catch lightning in the bottle. With the Philadelphia Phillies last year, I think everybody thought they were getting bounced the first round. They went to the World Series. They lost, but they went to the World Series. It's one of those things. And if a guy like Eduardo Rodriguez is continuing to pitch well, let me offer this curveball to you, no pun intended. Rather than trying to trade him, extend him. If you really think he could be that guy moving forward, it doesn't just have to be we either suck and he gets dealt, or we kind of keep it going and we leave him for this year and see what happens come free agency. If you think that he could be a guy that could be a puzzle piece in this rotation for seasons to come, which, like I said in the past, I think he can be. I still don't think he's going to be an ace, or should be an ace of this type of rotation. But as a 3 or a 4 guy, absolutely. He's pitching like an ace right now. I'll give him that. I just don't think he's got that longevity. He doesn't have longevity like a Shohei Ohtani or a Justin Verlander or a Max Scherzer, kind of that guy you can count on every 5 days that you put him out there, you're probably winning the game if your offense backs you up. He's not there yet, but that's interesting. Avi is interesting because this is a walk year for him. He can opt out as well, I believe, after this season, if he wanted to. So my brain says maybe yes, you consider moving some of these guys. My heart says if you're close, man, go for it. For it. I mean, now what I will say this: you said, do they add some pieces? There's tons of areas on this team where they could add talent. I think that would be interesting. I don't think if they're in the situation they are now 2 months from now, you would see them go out and make a bunch of big blockbuster trades to upgrade at second base or third base or left field or starting pitching. You might see some kind of middle of the road things, maybe some bargain deals, but I don't think you're going to see
perhaps.
I don't think you're going to see a big name starting second baseman or
You don't think they're gonna try and put something together to get Shohei
no.
to
unfortunately
finish the season in Detroit.
Yeah, and I don't think the asking price, honestly, unless you're trading Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, and a bunch of other, potentially first rounders that you just drafted, and maybe a couple season guys like an Erod or something, are you going to make that trade? I hate to tell you this, Tigers fans, we're not going to be in the running for Shohei Ohtani. We're just not going to be.
It's not going to happen. He wants to stay on the West Coast. It's going to be interesting because I don't think there will be a deadline market for Shohei Ohtani, because why would you give up anything when you can just sign him 4 months later?
This is my favorite time of year for baseball, where the LA Angels, who always get off to a pretty good little start in the months of April and some of May, they get off to that hot start. And finally, the Angels figured it out. They got Trout and Shohei. They're going to finally be competitive. And then they start to slowly do their decline because their bullpen sucks. And there's the rest of the team around Shohei and Trout are just, whatever. And it's just my favorite time of year. I'm sure Tom Souls knows this time of year quite well for the Angels, because it's just that time of year, man, where they just start to slowly decline, and it is what it is. So it's great. But I think they're aren't the Angels are playing the Twins right now, so I would like them to at least stay
Yes.
competent and play well for these next couple of
Would
games.
love a
if they wouldn't mind.
couple more wins from the Los Angeles Angels in
Agreed.
their current series.
What do you think? Do you think, like, kind of, I'm gonna throw your hypothetical back at you? Like, what do you think? I could see it going a lot of different ways, but I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, what I would like to see them, yeah, definitely. I think if you have a shot at 500 and winning the Central, if you're in the realm of that competition, I think even up to even like 5 games back at the break, like I think you have to do what you can to try and achieve that. If for no other reason, then it also makes you more attractive trying to get free agents in the off season of like, hey, we lost the Central by 1 game. Like, come here, and you will make this team 5 games better by your presence. Great. Now we're winning the AL Central going away, and we're in that spot. Now, what do I think their priority to add should be? It probably is like a middle reliever or another competent starter that is like consistently competent. It doesn't necessarily need to be an ace necessarily. I think we get the ace in the off season. I'm not sure who that might be at this moment, but I think that should be an off season priority, is to go actually get that like big time ace. But finding somebody that is in that same like kind of like Erod category, like can have really, really dominant starts, but will be mostly competent most of the time. Because then I think like among Manning, Skubal, Mize, Faedo, like all of those guys, there is a rest of a rotation that you could see the team win a World Series with. That exists. I think it's there. I don't know which two and a half of those guys it is. But the talent is there amongst them, assuming they continue the development trajectory that they could and should be on. Skubal in particular, like coming back from injury, I think the trajectory he was on, I think that we can see that develop into a really, really nice piece of the rotation. But yeah, I mean, I think that like, yes, certainly there are upgrades available at a lot of the position players, but like the team has been playing good defense. And I don't have the same complaints about the defense that I had last year. And the bats seem to be working pretty well. So I think that it is a team that you can not fully ride with. I think you have to do something at the trade deadline. To kind of upgrade a little bit in a few spots. But I think the biggest upgrades are going to come via free agency in the off season, and you should more or less stand pat if you're Scott Harris.
Yeah, you made a great point, and it's something we've talked about a lot. You know, this season could also be looked at again as interview season for the off season. You know, if this is the second year in a row where they've had, you know, whatever expectations, they finished 30 under. Good luck trying to get talent to come to Detroit. But, you know, if you're competitive for most of the season, you can then make that argument in the offseason, you know, to try to draw some more star talent and star power to Detroit. One thing I will say, and you may have just kind of answered your own question there. I mean, in terms of the Tigers needing, you know, if they're in the race still or in the thick of it, like going out and getting one competent starter, all they may have to do is look internally, because Skubal is probably, as of now, it sounds like his bullpens are going well, his rehabs are going well. I assume, like I said a moment ago, he'll probably start getting a live BP and hopefully some rehab games, you know, in the not too distant future. So you're probably looking at him coming back sometime, if everything continues as it is, late June, sometime maybe early July around the All-Star break, and that maybe a little bit after, I don't know. So that could be a potential resource. Matt Manning, you know, I know the guy broke his toe. I'm not trying to, like, you know, make fun of a little, I think it was like a pinky toe, but like, I feel like he's been out for months now at this point. Like, I remember he said he didn't want to miss more than his next start. And I don't know if he's coming back even until sometime June or July at this point. So, you know, if he's another potential guy.
It'll be at least late June because he's on the 60-day. So,
yeah. So that's another guy there. Offensively speaking, you know, their upgrades would be, I think offensively is where they're going to have to try to make some upgrades during the offseason. Nothing against Zach McKinstry. I think he's actually been a pleasant surprise these first, 40 some games. I just don't think longevity, he is your starting second baseman of the future. Jonathan Scope, I'm every time we record an episode, I'm honestly surprised that Jonathan Scope is still on the roster because he
Mhm.
just feels like he's taking up a spot. And I feel like maybe they're just giving Justin Henry Malloy a little bit more time in AAA to kind of get some reps in before they call him up and kick Scope to the curb. So there's always that. I think the platoon with Haas and Rogers is working quite well right now, so I'm happy with that. Dylan Dingler, though, is mashing in the minors, so I think that's something to keep an eye on and monitor. And the outfield is the outfield, I don't know
Which
about guys like Mayton and Veerling.
gives you potential pieces to move, right? Like
Hmm.
you've got Rogers, Haas, Dingler,
Hmm.
all with various levels of attractiveness to different teams depending
Hmm.
on what they need in their own organizations.
Yeah.
Uh, do you need a guy who has proven himself at the major league level? Are you looking for a high level prospect that is probably ready to come up?
Hmm.
Then we've got your needs. Make us an offer.
Yeah.
And that's a great spot to be. And I definitely agree with you on Scope. And like second base in general,
Hmm.
being kind of the spot where we could use an offensive upgrade at second base.
Second and third.
Yeah,
Second and third. Yep. Yeah.
but again, like unlike last year, with the exception of maybe Scope, and even Scope is hitting above 200 right now. Like, I mean, it's not quite like it's not as dead a spot in the lineup as we're used to, which I think is like making it a little bit harder for me to evaluate the talent because I'm instead of like being like, well, this guy is absolutely useless when he comes up to the
Hmm.
plate. Nobody
Yeah.
feels that way except maybe Miguel Cabrera right now, which is
Yeah, let's
weird
talk
to
about
say.
Miggy for a second. It's tough. It's tough right now watching him. And I've seen a couple people be like, first of all, he's not gonna. I'd be stunned if he just retired mid-season. I don't see that happening at all. But that's been like speculated by some people that he may just hang it up
Because
like
also
in
I think that
June.
like Miggy
He's having fun. It
understand.
looks like he's having fun.
Yeah, he's having a good time with the team, and Miggy understands that everyone in baseball would like to say goodbye to him, and
Hmm.
everybody has made their plans to say
We
goodbye to
have.
Miggy. Yeah, like so I think that like I think he understands the responsibility of that
Mhm.
to see it through. That
I do. I do wonder. Sorry to cut you off.
barring
I do wonder
injury,
if.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I do wonder if AJ considers starting him more consistently. Maybe just, I mean, in his defense, it's probably the first time in his career. This is the least amount of time he's ever played, and it makes sense. It's his last year, in the majors before he retires. But I wonder if maybe AJ doesn't consider at some point, if he continues to struggle like he has been, trying to get him more reps consistently.
Hmm.
You got to keep in mind, and I'm not trying to make excuses for Miggy, but last season, the first half, he had a pretty good start. I believe he was hitting 300 or
Hmm.
around 300 going into the All Star break. And then in the second half of the season, his knee just completely gave out on him. I will say this about Miguel Cabrera, and I'm not going to harp too much on him because he's Miguel Cabrera. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, my favorite player probably of all time next to Pudge Rodriguez. We didn't really hear much of the Miggy's in the best shape of his life going into spring training because I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if Miggy was hitting the elliptical too much during the offseason. He looked like the fifth year senior who's like, this is it for me. I'm going out with a bang kind of thing. So just there maybe is something that too, but
That's an
I from
interesting.
all accounts I hear he still puts in the work, pregame
Yeah,
with taking his BP and everything like that, and I don't know, maybe just something for AJ to consider, and other people have said that too, just like more consistent at bats.
and I think that that's an interesting potential solution, like heading post All Star break as well. Like if you're in contention, like when do you actually want Miguel Cabrera to get hot
Hmm.
probably towards a potential playoff run, as opposed
Hmm.
to April?
Yeah.
I don't care if Miguel Cabrera is hot in April. I would like Miguel Cabrera to be hot in September, October.
Yeah.
That would be a beautiful time for Miguel Cabrera. Like at this point, he's appeared in 22 games and only has 77 at bats this season, compared to Riley Green, who has appeared in 41 and has 162 at bats. So,
Just tells you the difference
like,
in age and passing of the torch.
So, and maybe that's part of the plan here with Miguel Cabrera is that, you know, we're gonna really take our time at the beginning of the year. We're gonna give some of these other guys the chance to develop into being our day-to-day players, like Riley Green. We're gonna
Mhm.
give him the at bats. We're gonna give Spencer the at bats. We're gonna give even Javi the at bats to kind of like figure it out and be those consistent hitters that we need to know. And then now that we have seven, eight guys like really consistently hitting, and now we can take the time to give Miggy the at bats to get his bat going, and then suddenly, you know, you get Miguel Cabrera single double machine back going into a lineup with guys hitting like Green, Torkelson, Baez. Um, now you really actually have a pretty high powered offense available to you.
Yeah, and I hope just for Miggy's sake, you know, it looks like he's having fun, right? So I don't know. I just worry about, you know, him being like, everyone else is contributing around me. I'm not contributing. But he's such a big presence on that in that clubhouse. You know, I doubt he thinks that. But
And his
you know,
and
and just for
his
his body
comments
too.
about how
I'm
he
worried about
wants
his
to go,
body.
he
He's
wants to
40,
go into
dude.
coaching. You know, I think Miguel Cabrera's days are going to long continue with the Detroit Tigers organization. I think that
Hmm.
he will have a job with the organization probably as early as next season in some
Hmm.
capacity. And so I think that he's also probably looking at at this season in that capacity as well. Like, how can I be
Yeah.
that veteran leader in the clubhouse? How can I coach these younger
Hmm.
guys into doing those things? And then, unlike the other guys, the other coaches in uniform, he does occasionally have to go up to the plate and take a swing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I just want to see him. What I really my real one whole open goal for Miggy this season. I got to see him hit another home run. I mean, and he will. It'll happen. Eventually, it's going to happen. It might be the only one. So enjoy it if and when it happens. But you know, it's. I just want to see him go out on top. I don't want it to be one of those things where you're kind of like, oh, this is brutal to watch. The guy had such a great career, and like he's really, really just
Yeah.
not good this last season. So I hope you're right. I hope he heats up, and maybe if he starts getting more at bats or whatever, they'll let him do that. But you know, it's time. When we've said that, and it's been a hell of a ride, and can't wait to see how these last few months unfold for him. But in the interim, right now, it's just a little bit tough to watch. But hopefully, it'll turn itself around soon enough.
Any other thoughts before I go to my number quiz?
No, go ahead, give me some numbers.
Okay, Luke. Excluding the first couple weeks of the season,
Yeah.
in any given season for this. So, you know, when was the last time the Detroit Tigers were above 500?
And we're excluding the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, so like, you know, obviously when you win the first game, you're technically
Yeah, yeah.
500. That kind of stuff doesn't count.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, they weren't last season. They weren't above 500 at all. I think, other than like the first week, so that doesn't count. 2020, we're not really. I can't count 2020. It was such a shortened season, right? I assume, or is that on the table? Is 2020 on the table?
2020 is on the season, is on the table.
I'm not gonna say 2020. You know, I guess it depends on first
I
14.
guess,
I'm gonna say this.
we will take 2020 off the table just because it was the weird season, because it
I'm gonna say
would have been
this.
2020.
Was it in the it'll be just right over the 2 week mark kind of thing. Was it 2019? They were 12 and they were like right around 500. I remember like the third week of April, like 12 and 12 after they took a doubleheader from the Red Sox. I remember I felt very good about myself, and I went to a bar in Chicago with Sean Young, and I celebrated because like maybe this is the year for the Tigers. And then the 2019. So that's gonna be my answer. 2019.
You got to go 2 years earlier than that.
2017. Wow.
June 7th, 2017. Last time they were above 500. outside of the COVID year when they did start 17-33. And yeah,
the first couple weeks of the season, sort of thing. Yeah, and I think I remember if I remember correctly in 2018, which is why I'm a little bit kind of also tempering expectations right now, although they're playing better. In 2018, Guardy's first year, they kind of had a similar start that they had this season, that season. And if I remember correctly, in May, they were floating right around 500, just like the Tigers currently are now. And then June came around, and then the wheels completely fell off the bus, and that was that. So yeah, yeah, they 2017. Holy cow. Holy cow. That's again that's kind of that goes back
in June 2018, they were 36-37 going into a June 19th game at Cincinnati, but then dropped their next 11 straight.
Yep. So kind of like what I said there. That was pretty close.
2019 was an 8-4 start.
Mm-hmm.
And then finished 47-114. So
not great stuff. Yeah, I think like I said, kind of going back to your hypothetical you posed a little earlier, 2017 was the last time they were above 500, in a reasonable amount of time into the season. And you can sniff a playoff spot in July. That's why with the team, I know we're excited. You got to try to take it day by day or series by series, so to speak. I don't want to do the whole AJ Hinch thing. We just got to win tomorrow's game, because that sometimes to me is a little bit of a cop out. But yeah, I was happy to see AJ get rung up and tossed in the Pittsburgh game too. I know I've been pretty critical of him this year because I do feel like sometimes I do worry a little bit at times. AJ has that kind of Joe Madden thing where he thinks he's the smartest guy in the stadium, which it's good to be confident. Just don't become overconfident with that and start trusting the analytics and the metrics too much. I think that's obviously a part of the game. I'm not trying to be some old school baseball Puritan who's like, we never used to have those kind of things. Trust them. They're a part of the game. Trust them. Just don't let it be the only thing that's making your decision and basing your decisions. So I was happy to see AJ show a little fire and get tossed in that second game of the Pittsburgh matchup. That was nice to see. So yeah, they're playing well right now. But just again, you gotta take advantage of May. May right now, it's set up for you on the table to end the month above 500 with a winning record going into June, where you're going to then play some tougher teams. So take advantage of the matchups that you have in front of you and win your games, and all will be well.
Yeah, because so they're sitting in second place as we record this podcast. Obviously in a battle for second place with the Guardians at the moment, within earshot of the Twins. Great potential to catch the Twins before they face the Twins. But not to be missed, as much as we have made fun of the White Sox and have made the White Sox aren't that far behind either. Nope. So there is a world where if you go on a little bit of a skid, you suddenly find yourself in fourth place.
Yeah, the White Sox in the last 10 games are 5-5. And there's 7.5 out right now of the division. So a lot of baseball left to be played. And the White Sox, I think, on paper, have a very talented team. They just have not been able to click for whatever reason. So I'm definitely not saying like they're dead in the water and done. Right now, they're not a great baseball team, so take advantage of that, as opposed to where you may see them in July, August, or September, and they've figured things out. So just take what you got right now and do your best. And just be very thankful that you're not in the AL East, because the 33-13 Tampa Bay Rays would have no sympathy for the 20-22 Detroit Tigers.
No,
20-22.
And we just really need the East to really start playing each other so that some of those teams can get losing records, because I at least 4 of the 5 teams are above 500, if not all 5.
All five teams, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, so
all 5 teams.
Currently, the playoffs are essentially the AL East and the other 2 division winners.
Baltimore is such a fun team to watch. Tampa's a fun team to watch. You always know that the Yankees and the Red Sox are going to be good. Same with Toronto; they're a fun team to watch. Here's what's hilarious: the Toronto Blue Jays and the Boston Red Sox are tied for last place in the AL East at a record of 25-20. They are in last place in the AL East If they played in the American League Central, they would be in first place.
by a nice little margin.
Yeah,
four
by
games.
yeah, by a game or two, yeah, over the 24 and 21 Twins. So
Yeah.
sucks.
A lot of baseball
Them's the
left.
ropes, though.
Love to see that the Tigers are fighting for 500. Hopefully, and we said this last episode, hopefully when we record the next episode, they're above 500.
That'd be great. And as always, condolences to the Oakland A's. 10 and 36.